everybody. Thanks for being here. My name is Sue Tarpey, and I'm with the Montana Progressive Democrats. We are a partner organization of the Democratic Party, and we push for progressive causes, really trying to push the envelope a little bit to move the party to the left. So what we're going to be doing during the legislative session is working with the Progressive Caucus. Representative Andrea Olsen is here, and she's going to be talking, explaining to us how everything works. We also have Representative Jessica Kajala and Tom Woods, who are going to be organizing the Progressive Caucus. We are going to be working directly with them to get some really good progressive legislation passed, and we hope that you guys will maybe think about joining us in fighting for the cause and join one of our teams. Barb is going to talk a little more about our teams, but what our goal is going to be during the session is to work cohesively to assist the Progressive Caucus in passing legislation that will work for the people and create a dignified and equalized existence for all Montanans to thrive in. So Linda is going to tell you a little bit more about why we're doing this.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Linda Jillison, and I'm also working with the Montana Progressive Democrats. And when I think of why we're here tonight, I'll tell you what I asked of Andrea a few months ago, I think right after, in the spring, right after the primaries were over. And we had a cup of coffee, and I said to her, okay, Andrea, help me feel good about continuing to work since once again, my candidate did not win the primary. And so we took deep breaths, and Andrea chatted with me for a while. And one of the things we talked about was that the problem with a lot of us in politics is that we only work during elections. And then we kind of go away until the next election. So the election seems to be where we put all of our eggs. And if we lose, we just lose and we feel terrible. So Andrea told me that she would love to give some training to folks that would help them get involved with the legislature and keep involved with the legislature, because our legislators are really, really busy people and need all the support we can give them. So that's sort of when I began talking to Andrea about this, and she chatted with Susie and other people from Progressive Dems. So that's what we're hoping for, is that that a lot of us will be able to stay involved with our legislators and help them understand what it is we want, and help them with research if they need help with research and with communications and so on and so forth. So that's what I'm hoping for from this particular session, is to find out ways that I can be more effectively involved with this next legislative session. Thank you. Barb's going to talk about this evening. There you go, sweetie.
So I'm Barb Merrifield with the Montana Progressive Dems, and what I want to talk about is what our plan is, and you've got it in front of you. It's this sheet. This is a prototype to start moving things toward having our legislators contacting us, letting us know what they need as far as lobbying, research, support for their bills, outreach, legislative watch. I did this a little bit with Missoula Rises last year. Mary Corr headed up a team, and it was fabulous. It was really helpful to get information out there. We worked with Indivisible. We said, here's some bills, state, at the state level, obviously. And we were able to engage a lot of people in Missoula County. So what Andrea and Sue and Linda and and Pete, as the head of the Montana Progressive Dems, have put together is a prototype and a plan to move forward and expand this statewide. So Missoula County has a good plan in place. Unfortunately, the only platform we have is Facebook for the most part. And then we have websites as well. And Sydney Schweitzer got information out in spreadsheets as well as on their website, Indivisible's website, and a lot of different places. So that Missoula County was very involved, but we want to get this statewide. We want the legislators to be very engaged and they're super busy, but if they see something come in and they want us to know and they need some help with it, then there's gonna be a channel for them to do that. We're gonna try to set up a Slack, well, we already set up a Slack communication program so that we can get the legislators to talk to us and tell us what they need. Andrea, as Sue said, and a few others there's a progressive caucus that's already organized, so that's a starting place. But there's also legislators that want to promote really good progressive bills. They've already got them in the hopper, and we want to work with those folks as well. So this is expanding it statewide, getting our legislators to get their constituents involved, and moving that forward. And on that note, could we just go around and in 10 to 30 seconds, give us your first name and what you want to get out of this training.
Hi, I'm Ben, and I'm just interested in kind of how this develops. I'm hoping to help on the back end with the website of the Progressive Dems to make sure we can promote this statewide.
I'm Nancy, and I came to just learn more how the process works.
I'm Sue, and I want to be on all four of the.
Excellent, Sue. You're exactly the person we want. You're Andrea's friend.
I just think this is very exciting, and thank you for doing this. This is great. Wow, I'm impressed already.
And I'm Diane, and I'm interested in helping along with Susie here. I'm gonna drive, but I'm also interested in working on Medicaid expansion.
And my name's Mary, and I'm here to learn all about this and learn from Andrea what you want from speech voice, and also how to coordinate. I'm part of Missoula Rises, and how to coordinate with the indivisible groups with what sounds like good things on here. And I'm Linda, already introduced myself.
And I'm Barb. Introduce myself.
I'm Lee, I'm interested in number 4, and I'm more like Mary, I want to learn all about all of it.
I'm Margaret Gorski, I'm from the Bitterroot.
Yay!
So lots of reasons I want to get more involved with the legislature this session. But I've taken on the challenge of trying to figure out how to organize Ravalli County, keep the people that got involved in this election engaged, and to try to identify some realistic goals to keep some motivation going. So I'm going to be trying to harvest some ideas from you guys to try to figure out how do Democrats actually get involved and engaged when all of our delegation is Republican.
And I'm Casey York. I run Track Free Montana Public Lands. I'm from the Bitterroot, I'm from Hamilton. And we have a couple of bills submitted for the legislature, and I need to learn as much as I possibly can about it.
Hi, I'm John, and I'm just here to basically learn how the system works. I've seen a little bit. Kind of tangentially, I'm here, Link, just trying to learn some different ways to bring groups together for a common goal. Also maybe provide a perspective from one of our, from being two of the 12 Native American nations in the state.
I'm Dodie Anderson. One of the things I'm really interested in is the legislature and how it works, but I'm also working with Montana Cares. We've submitted an initiative to be put on the 2020 ballot, and it's for renewable energy expansion in Montana. So we just kind of need to watch what's happening so that can be adjusted if something good happens in the legislature. So.
Cool. My name's Elizabeth, and I'm here to learn. We have a powerful tool in Montana with our citizens initiatives, and I think I'm looking for positive leverages right now, positive levers to pull.
I'm Connie Keogh. I'm representative
elected, so I plan to spend a lot of time in Helena. And I'm here because I want to learn too, and she knows a lot of stuff, so I ask her a lot of questions.
I'm Jean. I'm here to learn. I'm a volunteer with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense, so I just want to learn a lot of stuff.
I'm Charlie. I'm just here to learn. And my friends are here.
My name's Catherine. I've mostly been doing stuff with Missoula Rises in the past. I'm kind of along the same lines as Mary, where it seems like there's a really kind of complicated ecosystem of different groups doing related work in Missoula and in statewide, and I'm really interested in learning more about what these teams are doing and how they're coordinating with other teams, because as much as we can reduce like duplication of effort, we can reduce burnout, because I think everybody in this room is here for the long haul, but let's make it as easy on ourselves as possible.
I'm Mary. I've been lobbying a lot over the years, but even so, I really would like to see exactly what the legislators think we can get accomplished this year, and listen and help as much as I can.
I'm Pete Talbot. I'm the director of the Montana Progressive Democrats. I had very little to do with this event tonight. I have to thank Barb and Linda and Andrea and Susie for putting this on. This is what we're all about, activist politics. The only other plug is we do have remits right here, little envelopes. We have some ambitious goals for this legislative session, so any support you can give us would be appreciated. And thanks again for putting this on while I've been out of town.
Just one more thing, a couple of things. There's coffee and tea back there, help yourselves, and cookies. The bathrooms are right out there. But while we're going through what Andrea's gonna be showing us, think about what's our plan is here. This isn't set in stone. This is just something we came up with. We haven't done this before. So while you're absorbing what Andrea's talking about, think about how to do things. We can make this plan better, I'm sure of it. So if you have any suggestions or any additions or takeaways or anything you want to give to us later, let me know. We'll talk about it after when Andrea's done. We'll get everybody signed up also. So take it away, Andrea. Representative Andrea Olsen.
I just want to say how excited I am that you're all here, because what I really believe is that citizens make the difference, and that's my goal tonight, is to educate you a bit more than maybe you already are, give you some tools, but inspire you to continue to participate with those tools, because there's lots of ways in which to participate, but it does get, people do feel like it's not, they don't see things moving as fast. But the main thing I wanted to do, if at all possible, is get you to believe that you as citizens can be as effective as legislators because of some very simple facts. One is that we all that are citizen legislators, Connie and I and Margaret, that did such a great job. Thank you for coming and still participating. No, it's really a testament to not only the hard work you did during the session during the campaign reaching people, but your commitment to continue to work. Because the one, you know what, I'm going to end up wanting to say 5 things at one time, so I will skip around a lot. I apologize for that. That's not my skill. I'm not a public speaker. That's not my skill. But I am committed to public participation in the legislature. I am committed to making government, through working in the legislature, work for everybody. The legislature helps create the world that we live in, but we can't do anything that the public isn't participating in, especially when we're talking about doing something for the public. And the reason I'm doing this kind of activity is really from, my training, that it really takes a lot of us to get something done. But if you remember President Obama's last State of the Union address, he said, I'm the president, yes, but I'm only a person and I can't do it alone. And that made me feel okay in admitting that, one, I don't do anything alone effectively, but the reality is, in order for us to have the society that we need, that we want to live in, we actually need to participate more than ever now. And that's what I'm hoping to do, is give you tools that inspire you to participate more and to realize that if you have a commitment to something that you know that you want to see done through a process, it's not going to be happening today. I can't tell you the whole process that I think you need in order to be as effective as somebody who gets to turn the vote. But the key about legislators is we get to vote on certain things, but we don't get to vote on something that the public, in all the different ways it comes to the legislature, unless they bring it to us, right? And you'll see through this program how I'm hoping, okay, we have a little technical difficulty, so we'll hopefully, the example I was going to show you, where the public comes in power and shows you what they can actually accomplish. I'm hoping you're going to be able to hear that hearing. But so what I'm going to try to do is give you an overview. I'm going to play around on the website to show you that there's a lot of information there. And frankly, everything that we get as legislators, because remember, some of us, I'm on my third session, so I know some things more than I knew when I first was elected. We have a lot of people coming in to be elected. But if you look at some of those things, you can learn exactly what we're learning as we learn to prepare ourselves to make decisions that affect all of you and affect the future of this state. So I'm gonna, and then we're gonna play on that website to show you how you can find information, and then hopefully we'll be able to spend some time with seeing how it actually gets done by some of the real pros in the legislature. And one of my favorite hearings, actually. So first of all, what I'm going to do is, this is a training manual, and so what I did, I started making a PowerPoint using it, but I just decided to go through and edit it a little bit. So I'm going to proceed giving you an overview, but if somebody's really needs to ask a question, it's okay for you to interrupt me, because I love answering questions actually better sometimes. The reality is education is the key to everything in our democracy, and I really want to encourage you that it really is about educating yourself about what a problem is and pursuing all the avenues to make it work for people, right? If you have a problem, a challenge, it really is about educating yourselves and helping educate those that get to vote for those few years and making sure that they vote the right way. Okay, so the Montana legislature, I know that all of you already know that, or you wouldn't be here, that it affects everything that we do. There isn't anything that hasn't changed in your lifetime that wasn't facilitated or created by government action, most often by the legislature changing something, right? So it's not true that the legislature indirectly always affects every change, but it is involved in every single change, because the legislature is, government is how we organize ourselves. I think maybe I need this in here. And if you don't, I'm here to, the legislative branch makes the laws, as you all know, and the governor can veto them, the administrative branch, as long as we have enough Democrats, or we have enough people, because it's not always Democrats. There's a bill that passed 99-1 that the governor vetoed. Does people want to know what it is? So I always, I'm always wanting to give the other side of anything I say. So I just want you to know that every time I say something, you can come up with a story that's a different story. And so I'll give you the 99-1. You know how we have to get new license plates now every 5 years? Yep, and so we wanted not to do that. I'll tell you why, because in my car they were rusted on and I didn't want to have to keep changing them because I actually had to get somebody to help me every time. So that was a bill that we passed, 99-1, to change it from 5 years to 10 years, and the governor vetoed it, and there wasn't enough people that override his veto on that, mainly because in that kind of situation, most of us are going to honor the governor's decision in that situation. They have lots of reasons for doing certain things. There was, sorry, I'm not going to, yeah. Yeah. There's going to be bills I really want to go down that rabbit hole with you, but not that one today. And the reason I mentioned spending so much time on the legislature passing laws and the governor vetoing it is because I am talking to you as people who want to get involved in making sure the society reflects your values, reflects your commitment to the people of this state. And I can tell you that if you want to go look at the different kinds of things that will happen if the governor can't veto something, we are passing things that I think, frankly, would be very detrimental to us as a society. And so if you want to see what kind of society we might live in, you can go to the vetoed bills of every session and see that kind of situation. I want to refer back to something, we're living in a time where I think labels are not really working for us very much anymore. Frankly, even the Democrat, Republican labels, but certainly many of the ideas that we have. And I want to go back to the Montana Constitution because in 1972, Montanans created the world that they wanted to live in by creating the Montana Constitution. And it is considered one of the most beautiful constitutions in the country, in the United States, and actually leads the world in some of its provisions. For example, the right to a clean and healthy environment. And that Constitution was created by 100 people that could not have been involved in any politics. They were elected by the public, but they couldn't have run if they had been involved in any politics prior to running. And they sat alphabetically, and nobody actually ever really talked about whether or not they were there because they weren't there because they were a partisan person. They were there to help create the state. And I do think that it's important in this day and age to kind of go back to the kind of history of what that people have left for us, the legacy they've left for us. I find myself being as much a progressive Democrat as I am a Back to the Future gal. Wanting to have, in the 19th century, I was going to mention this later, but miners, farmers, and ranchers committed to growing the state of Montana, creating the University of Montana, and saying what? All students in Montana should go to school for free, right? And when I went to school in Montana, it wasn't free, even in 1980s, but guess what? It was way more affordable than it is now. And what is that? That's a government's decision, is it in the next slide, about what we do. One of the things that we do here is this, right? We decide how to spend money, how much we're going to collect from people. That's one of the main things that we do, right? But we have to do it, supposedly we have to do it. Can you guys read this? No. Okay, it's ultimately, we determine the quality of life in Montana by balancing the needs of our constituents. Now, do y'all feel like that's being done very well? Right? People are pretty unhappy. People are very critical. People are very concerned for the economy. People feel very threatened. They feel a lack of security in so many areas now that guess what? People don't want to pay any more taxes, right? People don't want to pay taxes. One of the things we do is collect taxes and then we spend them. And in the 80s, we were still collecting taxes and putting it towards education of our young people to help make sure that we invest in Montana. And the tax burden for the whole country, as you know, has gone from where we used to collect 80-90% from people who made millions and billions of dollars. We collected 80 or 90% of their profits back. Now we collect almost nothing from some of those. Percentage-wise, we collect almost nothing. And I mention that because that was what? It was public pressure put on by people influencing government to make decisions that little by little eroded what? Really what everybody needs. So we sometimes need to go to that bigger picture and realize that legislators are trying to balance that all the time. How do we balance constituents, what our constituents want, with what we want to do to create the kind of world we all want to live in. And I would argue that this is why I'm here, is because I do believe constituents want certain things from government, but they're not going to get those things unless they actually now organize and demand them. Okay? Because what we're doing is we're spending a lot of time balancing, we're always balancing things, but we can't balance any of the big things for very long. Somebody mentioned Medicaid expansion. Now, that is something that we have to reauthorize. It was a huge fight, as you all know. It's something that is so fundamental to us as healthcare. It's something that's so fundamental to the our commitment to the people to be able to live fulfilled lives, to really invest in our state, invest in our future. And yet, we created a bill that has pretty significant benefits, but on the other hand, at a huge cost for ultimately some of the very same people, right? The same communities. And what I mean by that is there are fundamental things that happened in that where insurance rates went up. People can't afford to pay insurance anymore. But those things were all compromises that led to a bill that led to a solution to a challenge that, you know, by the time it filtered up, you know, kind of the basic understanding that I have, which is that everyone needs health care and that we need to do that what? Fiscally conservative, what did that used to mean? That used to mean that you don't spend a lot of money doing things you don't need to do. And we do in healthcare a lot of that kind of stuff, right? We spend a lot of money on things we don't need to do. So anyway, I'm going to be very political because I'm going to try to talk about, I don't mean political, I'm going to try to talk about what I think are logical problems in the system. And that's a very important one because this is what makes people feel like the system doesn't work, right? Because every time there's an actual solution, it doesn't actually solve everything. And that's a really important thing to recognize is that it is people doing it and these, that we can't actually give up on that. And we can't just blame the people that took those votes because remember, by the time it gets to the vote, the ACA looks like A, B, and C, you know, it looks like a very particular document. And so people who vote yes on that want health care for all. They want everybody in Montana to be able to get health care. And then you can have people who vote no on it because they don't want people to get health care. That's one of the reasons. But there's also problems in the bill that give people an excuse to vote against something. So we have a lot to work out. It's going to take a lot of energy from everybody. And that's a really complicated one. But the legislator's job is really to do all of those things you expect a legislator to do. Make all the right decisions that benefit everybody on every single thing, and that really doesn't cost any money, right? That's what you all want.
And get reelected.
You know, that's, well, and you can promise that, and you can get reelected. But guess what? If you actually talked about how complicated things were and how much energy it really takes, then you might actually have to change a lot of the ways we do things, and you'll see why, what I'm talking about now, and you'll see some inherent problems and why some of the solutions. But that the system's actually set up in a way to find ways to address that. Okay. So we monitor government, you know, we do all that kind of stuff. Does everyone understand what is there anything you think a legislator does that wasn't in that list? Or that you want a legislator to do that I didn't address a bit? You ready to do all that, Connie?
Plenty, I think.
Are you ready to solve the world? I think it's really, I mean, it really is. It's time to solve the world's problems, and they start here at home. And,
For free.
yeah, well, and I'll just quote now one of my favorite, because it's almost December, it's December 10th, is International Human Rights Day. And Eleanor Roosevelt, you know, our First Lady, right? The United States' First Lady, was working at the United Nations in the Human Rights Commission at the time that they developed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And this was developed during Roosevelt's term, which was what? Does everybody remember? right after World War II, and after the entire country felt deeply what it was like to live in poverty, where your ability to find food and shelter was at risk every day for the majority of people, not just a few of the people. Now, in that promise, they created the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which the first provision is all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and in rights, right? That is, but she said, Eleanor Roosevelt gave this great paragraph, which the gist of it is international human rights, which are frankly fundamentally U.S. commitments already. They were all commitments that the United States had already made to people, political and cultural and social rights. But Eleanor Roosevelt says they don't matter anywhere internationally if they don't matter in your daily lives. Where you work, where you go to school, where you live, how you eat, what kind of society you live in. So we're all on the mission, in my mind, we're all on a mission to give, we as legislators are on a mission to give as much of our knowledge and much of our understanding of human beings to make sure that dignity is found in our laws, right? That we're trying to continually become better and better at that. Well, we're doing that, and this is just a funny thing. So, you know, the funny thing in business world, right, is they always justify their high salaries on the basis of you get what you pay for, right? 35 million is what CEOs in healthcare, we had lobbyists for PBMs and health insurance companies fighting over whose fault it was that Montana pharmacists in rural Montana could no longer pay for the drugs that their townspeople needed because the PBMs were charging so much for the drug and the insurance companies wouldn't pay for it. So when pharmacists were paying just a few bucks, they said, okay, we'll deal with it. But then it became hundreds of dollars for some drugs, and they came to the legislature and said, we don't want to have to provide those drugs to our people anymore because we can't afford to do it. And you had the PBMs and the lobbyists for the PBMs and the insurance companies arguing that it was each other's fault. The insurance companies were saying the PBMs were charging too much. The PBMs were saying the insurance companies just didn't want to pay anymore. You know, we pay all this money to insurance companies, but they don't really want to pay us. And what's fascinating is that their top CEOs on all across the board were making in the millions of dollars a year. 32 million, 15 million, 18 million. Does that shock anybody? Do you think they're worth it? No. Anyway. No. So anyway, that's an important question because guess what? This is what your legislator gets paid for 2 years' work. Did you know that? Does everyone know that?
For two sessions?
For 2 years. We only meet 40 days or 90 days every 2 years. So that is something where a real cynic says, maybe the legislature should only meet 2 days every 90 years, right? But we meet 2 years, or every 2 years. For 90 days, we get paid $10.33 for 8 hours a day for 90 days. Okay? And I only mention that because in order for me to get anything done at the legislature, I cannot not work during the rest of the 2 years, right? Now, and even when you do work all the time, you can't do it, but get much done. But people have to have other jobs, or you have to be what? Retired or independently wealthy, right? And so this says this is what our commitment is to what is what I can think is one of the most fundamental public participatory processes that determine how our society is. This is what we're willing to pay for it. Anyway, okay. I'm not advocating for a raise. Yeah, I'm not advocating for a raise, although, what's that?
Isn't the leader of the Senate wanting a big raise for the
What would be a big raise, you know? I mean, the thing is, state employees get 1 to 2%. If you're making the most money in the state, which the highest paid public official gets paid a lot of money, and his 2% raise was $53,000. It was just in the Missoulian, right? And I told him, you shouldn't have taken a raise right before the session starts, because guess what? But you know what? People need to be paid, right? But we have had a system that's based upon justifying high salaries because you get what you pay for, and yet at the same time increasing everybody equally, right? Because we increase by percentage. But is that really raising everybody equally? Not really. Okay. So, I'm giving way too much of my. Okay. So it's because you guys know the basics, right? I mean, I'm hoping I'm not talking out of turn here, that you guys do know. So how an idea becomes a bill. This is all in, all of this is on the internet, the important part of it. So, but it all happens because of what? Our constituents coming to us and saying, I have a problem and I want you to help me solve it, right? And yes, a lot of individual people do that, right? So do a lot of interest groups. Unions take great pride in reminding us that they gave us the 8-hour day, the weekend, a vacation, right? These things are really, really important. And unions were responsible for that because they had what? A lot of people working together, recognizing that what? They had power as a group and a situation that didn't work for anybody's life, right? If you have to work 24/7, 7 days a week, and you know, this has been eroded significantly, what I just said. Pharmacists in, I'm trying to mention healthcare problems because somebody mentioned that specifically, but you know, they're suing places like Walmart and these companies because they don't even have time to take bathroom breaks or go to lunch, right? And those are people we consider to be healthcare professionals. And we think they get paid lots of money and they don't even get to go to the bathroom on their own. I mean, get to go to the bathroom, anyway. So, anyway, the way that an idea becomes a bill is you do activity, right? You act on it. And that's what I'm hoping to help you guys do, is that when you have an idea, you know how to gather the support that you need to pass something that wants to that you want to see happen. Yep.
So, how soon are some of I know that there's a couple of bills concerning Medicaid expansion that Ed Buttrey's already proposed. When will those become available for us to see? Do we have to wait until the start of the legislature?
There's only a few drafts of things, and that's not one. That is going to be something where potential drafts for something that is that important and has as many stakeholders, they're going to try to get that to be as close to what they want to see happen as possible. So we may not see a draft for a while on a bill like that.
You mean like for a while after the legislature?
Yeah. I mean, okay, so how a bill becomes a law. I'm just going to skip right to, this process, right? That's how many times a bill is heard by people. It goes through this whole chain of events, and that's all in your This is last year's, but it's all in there too. It's a long process, so it's not that people don't have the bill draft done already.
No, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
When will we be able to view what's already done?
Not until they release it for the public, because once it gets released here, then it goes. So when I have a bill idea, when Buttrey has a bill idea, once it gets out of here and goes to the committee and introduced, it's no longer his bill, right? He's the sponsor of the bill, but now we all get to do whatever we want to, that we have the power to do to it. So people want to make sure that they know what's going to happen to that bill as best as possible. And I don't know, we'll go look at the ones that are already introduced and see if any of the healthcare ones are. Yes.
Henry, how often is it common practice for a special interest group who's trying to push a specific piece of legislation to already have it completely drafted before the session begins, and that they've already done the legwork to actually write the bill, as opposed to when you say, oh, I have an idea, like a citizen who wants to solve a problem, doesn't have the resources, doesn't know how to write a bill? How does an ordinary citizen catch up to a special interest group that's already written a
So,
bill from the very beginning?
That's an excellent question, and fundamentally part of the process is that a new idea that you haven't thought about before now isn't going to have time to get through the process. Now, that's not to say it's completely impossible, but it's almost impossible. So, for instance, the bills that will be part of my priority bills are ones that failed last year, but they're like, so for instance, ever since HB 334 in 2013 was passed, which gutted the right of an injured worker. We all work. When you get injured at your place of employment, you no longer always can continue to keep your own doctor. So essentially, insurance companies have the power to choose who your doctor is. So I've had a bill to reverse that for my 2 sessions. So that bill is going to be ready, and it will go first. Now I have another bill that was on food security. It was about how to protect our crops given what we know about glyphosate. Now I can just say it outright. I mean, in glyphosate, the World Health Organization says it's poisonous. California case has proved it causes cancer, or that both have said it causes cancer. So the question is, okay, we can deny that it does and keep using it, but can we sell our products? We're an export state. Can we sell our products when we continue to have contamination from some of that on products where import countries don't want it, right? So that's the bill. And that bill now will come out way sooner than it did the last 2 times, because the chair of Ag said I had to have all the support before he'd schedule a hearing. That is not something, usually every bill gets a hearing, right? That's the general rule, is every bill gets a hearing.
So is your bill already on the legislative site that we can read it then? Your proposed bill?
If you go to last year's, it's not there now, because once I turn
That's
mine
okay.
in, I have to pick my 5. We only get 5 that we can prioritize. Then everybody's 5 has to be done before they move on. So I'm still strategizing about that. Do I pick 5 brand new bills knowing that my next 3 are already done? You know, I'm
just trying to get an idea of what's
Yeah.
coming in the legislative session.
Well,
we won't know till after the first of the.
Yes, and so remember that question, because when I get to the website, I'll show you that. Go ahead, Connie.
Well, I think from Margaret's question, one of the best surprises for me is that we don't actually write the bills, you know? We get an idea, someone comes to us, we get an idea, we go to legislative services, and I mean, like, I wrote a 5-word sentence for one of the bills I'm drafting, and they're putting together now. It may not make it very far this year, and that continues on with what Andrea's talking about.
So some bills have been around for a long time, right? And some bills have been bills that have been tried to be passed in many forms for a long time. I'm going to give you an example of one that we'll have for sure is firefighter presumption of illness, right? Making sure that, you know, given that we have toxic houses now, right? Firefighters, if there's an accident within that, they will develop eventually certain kinds of illnesses. And we don't recognize that. We were one of the first states to start to get that when it became a model legislation. So there was model legislation that states as a whole came up with. There's an organization that does that kind of legislation. And they, and now we're almost the last state, right? One legislator in Great Falls lost his job probably because of the hearing, because firefighters in Great Falls said, you will not represent us again, right? We're going to go for someone else, and they did. So that's one way, right? What Connie said. Legislative Services is the one that finalizes all the bills. But bills can come in many forms. They can come directly from other organizations. One of the bills we're going to talk about in the hearing we're going to watch is an ALEC bill that comes directly from a national movement. People who are experts in areas, right, lawyers, they're not going to let legislative services write the bills necessarily, right? Insurance companies that hire all those lawyers don't let legislative services write their bills. That doesn't mean the idea doesn't get submitted, and they work with legislative services, but lobbyists are helping write those bills. Citizens are helping write those bills, yeah.
So an organization or just somebody, some citizen, can begin the idea of drafting a piece of legislation. Does it have to be sponsored by a sitting legislator?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's
Yeah, so there's on the website we're going to get to, in fact, I'll just try to get there. There's a whole instruction on how to write a bill. You can write your own bills. Now, does that mean it's not going to be changed? Right? But you can certainly draft your own bills because you're going to know the issue sometimes way better than even the legislator that is willing to carry it for you. So a smart legislator is going to say, well, your organization should really come up with what you really want to see in that. We will then give it to legislative services who will make sure that that's appropriate given that we haven't missed anything. Because many things have to have an effective date. If you're doing a resolution, you have to put in there who you want it sent to. If you forget to put in there who it's sent to. So there are, fancy legislative things that are added on, but you can start to write a lot of it yourself. And there's a place on the website to show you how to do that.
So can I go to any one of you guys and get a sponsor?
No.
In my own district.
If you come, no, you can get in, you can go to anyone.
Yeah.
Nobody has to do it. Like I just said, I'm going to put in lots of bill draft suggestions. I have lots of ideas. I have a lot of constituents that want things done. Legislators can only do so much. This is the reason that you all are so important. It shows in here somewhere. I think it's on the website. It tells you how to take care of yourself as a legislator because you might have to work 10 to 16 hours a day. So the thing that every one of you need to understand, and this is something, I was a lobbyist for 10 years for injured workers and labor, before I knew that when they said legislators have no time, that it took me to be a legislator to realize what that really means. Legislators have no time. Legislators are listening in some kind of formal situation or informal situation to others from 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night with very little time to do anything during the legislative time. So if the work isn't done before the legislature starts, if there isn't a constituent group who's willing to organize the people to come to a hearing, there won't be anybody there. And I had great hearings that I did for constituent groups where, because I didn't have time to organize everybody, I did it on my own. I got one bill passed in the House on auditing the Pentagon. We are the richest country in the world. We do have a lot of money, and the Washington Post came out and said that they could lose $200 billion without even blinking an eye. They could give up $200 billion from the Pentagon budget. And that's what the Montana state budget is. So that is something you can do it on your own, right? But it's very much more powerful if you have people that come and testify, and that's what we're going to see, is how that works. So anyway, so for government to work, you have to get involved. This is all stuff you can get on. So I'm going to go now to the website. I wish we would have just had computers here, I guess. So go to, let's put these down. All you have to do is plug in Montana legislature, right?
We all have computers.
Yeah, if you have your computer, go ahead. Oh, yeah, whatever. This is the new web page. Now, I'm just going to tell you,
the password for the Wi-Fi is up there if you need it. Learn to own.
Oops.
Capital L.
Network HOC, large letters.
So this is the new website. It's brand new, so everything that we used to know about it isn't all there anymore. It's not this. I mean, it's all there, but it's all different. And there's going to be mistakes, and it's not necessarily intuitive. But it is full of actual information, and it's worth playing with. So first I'm going to start with what was your question about finding a bill? Let's see.
See, this page has not changed, the one you were just at.
Right, but, okay, so you go to find my legislator. Whoops, that thing is, well, went down. I want it did. Oh. I'm sorry, guys, this is, what happened to this? So you go to this roster, this is a bit different, you just go down and you find, the problem is, I think that it's, okay, here's all the legislators. If you don't know who your legislator is, it will tell you. Here's mine. The problem is it doesn't have anything there yet, except for our committee assignments. So it'll tell you which committees I'm on, okay? And then when you go to that, you can go to the Agriculture Committee and see who else is on Agriculture, okay? That's all there. Going back and forth isn't as easy as it used to be. At least I haven't figured out how to do it as easy. Now, when you go to find a bill, this is the way it looked before. You can find a bill from a previous session here. But here, list, well, and see, there's been a big jump. These are the ones that have all been already, they're not only public, but they have a bill number already.
For this next session?
Yes, this is this coming up session, right? So Dave Fern is doing one on establishing affordable housing, okay? Now, sometimes titles are much broader than they need to be for what's actually happening in the bill. Sometimes the title completely misrepresents what's happening in the bill. And so what people do is they establish a watch list of general, if you're a paid lobbyist, you take anything on your subject area and you pay attention to what the wording is on all of the bills. But citizens can set up those kind of things too. So like for instance, here's ones that are already put in, and see this right here? That one already has a draft. That's how you tell if something's ready to read, right? Is it has a draft there. And that means you can pull down the draft, you can open it up, you can download it, and you can send it to all of your friends who are interested in that same issue. Okay? And I think what's really interesting about, so on this website I think works really well. You can always go here and go back to a different session. Here's all the different sessions here. And the reason you might want to do that is because bills, if they were heard in a previous session, you can see who opposed it and who didn't oppose it. You can actually, if you have a similar issue you want to bring, you can find out the people who might be interested in it as well. Okay? I want to introduce you to this link right here. Down here, it's a video on how to set up your own list. So when you go through the bills, you can say, oh, I want to keep track of that one. I want to keep track of what's going on with that one. And the reason that's important to keep track if you're really interested is because sometimes the hearing notices are only a couple of days. Okay? We're all there. Lobbyists are all there, but citizens aren't necessarily always there. And so you really want to, but this video tells you how to set up your own watch list, which I think is very important.
What's the name of that? Where you have your cursor over?
Yeah, it's on the laws page. Like if you go to the look up bill information, the same information's always at the bottom of it. So anytime you're in this thing that's about looking up bills, and then that takes you back to the main page, or the original pages, clicking on this capital.
Playing around with it really is a good thing, just like guessing with it.
The key is that if you want to find a bill, you can find it by who sponsors it. You can find a bill by subject matter. And it's true that if you want to look up a bill that has to do with banks, you need to go to financial institutions, right? Because they don't have banks there. Then if you want to look at all the bills, that's there, but usually you don't want to sort through all bills. This establish a preference account. That's what I meant by setting up your own list. And that instructional video down here. So when I move the cursor, can you see it, or is it too more? It's right there.
Yes.
That helps you make up your own list. The other way of doing that is if you find something you're really interested in, or particularly that you're really knowledgeable about, in addition to writing to the legislators about your opinion, you know, you need to come to a hearing. I'm trying to find the hearing. So down here, here's the hearing information. You can look at the committee. I'll just do agriculture because it's fast. Of course, there's nothing there right now because there isn't any. So let's go to So that's how you can find the hearings, the past hearings. So now what's going to happen is it's going to start looking like this for even as bills go through the process, right? And when bills go through the process, you'll be able to get it in Word. That's what that blue thing is, Word. The PDF is in red. And the next thing is the hearing. You can actually listen to the hearing. Now, sometimes it takes a while. It's actually getting a lot faster, but you can listen to a previous hearing if you missed it. And that's really important because why the bills go to the next session or go to the next house. So if they start in the House, they go to the Senate. If they start in the Senate, they come to the House. One of the bills that I got my first, I put these things on your desks here because this is what participation looks like. This is when you call in or email or phone or go onto the website and just put in a note. This is what we get. Now, some people get these in email. I got them in paper because I'm back to the, I got them in paper. It's a waste of paper, but I haven't thrown them away yet. That's what they look like.
Is it color
right?
significant?
Phone call was the yellow, and the other color is the signing in on the web page.
And some legislators get it all in email?
Yep, some get them all in email. Yep. Yeah, they send a message through email. And I think that's harder to keep track of it. And for me, it's really, you can see that some issues people are interested in a lot, some issues they're not interested in. But one of the issues that I got my first email about, or my first piece of paper, was the daylight savings time. And so I waited for that bill because I thought, oh, somebody cares about this bill. And it passed the Senate. It passed the Senate, so it did come to the House. And interestingly, when people found out that it passed the Senate, they all kind of came up in arms, and it got killed in the House committee because people didn't, even though people want it, people really don't want it when they think of the consequences of not having, sunlight till 10 o'clock at night comes this summer. So this is what, this part is just really full of information. So
And these are bills that are currently in the hopper?
these ones aren't. These are, I went back because they're, the bills that are currently in the hopper, go back to the regular session, go to look up bill information, and go to all introduced bills. These ones have all been introduced. That many have been introduced. They don't usually put them publicly up here until the election's over anyway. Okay? So, did we answer your question? Remind me of your question again, about the web, that I said we'd find it.
Oh, yeah, you just did, yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so this part is this is an everyday thing for anybody who's following anything at the legislature, is looking and seeing what's coming up in a hearing. Now, many people just watch it on television and they see what happens kind of after the fact, after it's been on a House hearing or a Senate hearing. But that usually, for the first 2 months, if you see something in the first 2 months, if it passes the House, it's going to go to the other House, the Senate. And so there's still time to participate in the process if you think something is going to pass that you don't think should. Okay, let's go back to. So the other way to participate, I wanted to show you a hearing. The problem is if it's not going to be loud enough, I don't know that we won't do it for very long, okay? So, and the reason I'm showing this hearing is because it truly, well, where did it go? It has some of the great lobbyists testifying, okay? And this was a bill that was introduced by Representative Whittick, and really is one of those kind of, well, I'm going to let you, what we'll do is, if we can hear it, we'll discuss it after the hearing. How's that?
So Andrea, are
Yeah.
all hearings, committee hearings open?
Yes, and I apologize, we had that, it's very important to, I skipped that part on a different presentation. You all have a constitutional right to know and to participate. So everything that happens at the government is public. Everyone has a right to participate. You'll see in this hearing, that'll be one of the issues that you'll see is whether you feel like people got to participate, right? So let's do this, and then if you would, just make notes as we go along of what kind of things you see that are interesting to you, and if you have, and I mean not just questions, but what strikes you in these hearings. And if it's not loud enough, we'll have to skip this little game.
That's House Bill 462. What we're going to do is, if you're going to testify, make sure you sign in the back, make sure your cell phones are turned off. We got a lot of people here today, so we're going to allow 20 minutes for each side. With that, there's a spot switched open on this bill.
Can you all hear?
Yeah.
Representing Central Gallatin Valley. You have before you House Bill 462. It's a fairly simple bill. It does two things. It says that state employees can decide if they want to continue paying their dues to their union. That's the first thing it does. The second thing it does is it takes the state out of the dues collection business, which we are currently in. The three things the bill does not do, as you looks like here's some testimony, it does not apply to private sector unions. It is not a classic right to know bill, which is right to work bill. It also does not apply to local employees, such as fire and police. It only applies, it could possibly apply to them if the local government decides by ordinance or resolution to extend this to their particular municipality or county. So it's a local option. The third thing this bill does not do is it affect collective bargaining. The collective bargaining process can continue on as it currently. Testimony, I'd be interested in closing after that testimony is provided. Thank you.
Do you all understand what the bill's about?
Yeah.
I think you might be able to do it better from there.
Blank bill.
Is he not? Oh,
Yeah,
what happened?
so it went away.
Okay, who's touched? None of us touched anything, right?
I do my.
And although the sponsor said this is
I think it's them, not you.
No, it's not. I listened to it 3 times today.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh, it's having
That's
trouble.
where I'm
picking
standing.
up.
Okay. Well.
every union, whether it's private sector or public,
Let's have that then.
There's something wrong with it, yeah.
One,
Just shorting out
it's
or
injury to
something.
all. This bill is
Or is it?
cause a great deal of divisiveness and conflict at times.
Okay, shoot.
Keep tapping.
It's really the most fabulous hearing.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Worth watching?
What hearing is it?
Well, you notice when you, okay, so I'll just send you all a link, or I'll write it
Oh,
down before I
perfect.
leave, yeah.
Please, please.
So what's fabulous about this hearing is that, well, Eric Fever, it's got all the greats. It's got all the greats.
And that was.
Okay, let's see if we can hear him. Let's see if we can hear him.
For your committee, but nonetheless, I feel compelled to be here today on behalf of my brothers and sisters in the public and private sector unions in Montana. You know, Mr. Chairman, Montana is a union state. Unions built this place. Started in the mines. We should be proud of that history. It's not all about farm and ranch. It's about mining too. In fact, we used to have some unionized farm workers. But the very first public employee bargain agreement in American history was in Butte. Butte Teachers Union, 1936. 38 years before public employees got the right to bargain collectively under Montana state statute. 39 before public school teachers got the right to bargain. That's our history. Why would we depart from our history? Why would we want to look like Texas? Kansas? Why would we want to look like Wisconsin? This bill is unnecessary, it's inappropriate, serves no useful purpose. Now, we fervently disagree with the sponsor. It's not just about state employees. Read the sections, they conflict with each other. But in one way or another, you either have right to work or you have a prohibition on the public employer collecting dues through payroll deduction. And those employers, publicly as they are defined in here, are not strictly state employees. They are police and fire, and they are teachers, and they are university faculty. Unions work. Unions work for this state. This union, ASME, MPEA, worked with this state when it looked like we were going to crater back in 2008. We bargained zero pay increase for state employees. And it was these unions that agreed last session only that we would share the burden, we would raise each person's contribution to our retirement systems, to share the burden of funding our retirement systems across the state. With the proud partners of public employers. We work well with you. Last, I really look at page 3, section 6, lines 19 and 20. That's a trap. What a terrible trap. Yes, according to this bill, we could continue to collectively bargain for our members. But we would no longer be the exclusive representative for the other folks that we actually represent in our bargaining units. Which is, by the way, why we have agency fee. There are folks in our bargaining units who don't want to be members of our union. And they do pay a fee if we negotiate that fee, which, by the way, is negotiated locally. It's not mandated by law. But this would take away that even opportunity for an agency fee. And it would then say we no longer have an exclusive right to bargain for everybody in the bargaining unit. So what are you asking us to do? Have labor contracts for those who are members? What do we have for those who are not members? Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, that bill, I think you know that. Well, we can't. I think we'll let the rest come back and get this session. Thank you.
I don't have to come back to this issue. To business and labor,
Testimony, I'd be interested in closing after that testimony is provided. Thank you.
And although the sponsor said this is an issue in communities, as it starts, Bill, every union, whether it's private sector or public one, it's an injury to all. This bill has caused great deal of divisiveness.
Yeah, it's not synced,
The
but we can
audio's
still
way
hear
behind.
it.
No, but it's completely the wrong hearing now. I mean, it's not the wrong hearing, it's just repeating.
We have over 25 families in Montana, and I heard you.
Okay, well, let's
Just right.
okay, let's see if he's. Oh, now we lost it completely. No, it's because I moved.
No, it's a problem with the website between the audio and video, the two aren't syncing up.
Well, it works really all afternoon. So, you know, the reality is J.D. Lynch is worth watching on this film. I mean,
us the link?
yeah, I'll send the link out.
So we need emails on the sign-up list and
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Do you want
yeah.
me to send it around?
And I just want to give you I gave you my card, but this is actually the new email list, my new email address.
That's Al Eckblad.
So first it was Al Eckblad, Eric Fever gave it history, Al Eckblad, he says, you know, so the key about this hearing is that one, it shows Art Whittick, right?
Yeah.
Doing a ALEC bill. You know, what's important about this hearing is manyfold. One, it was the very last day of business and labor. They were not gonna let this is one of the hearings that was not gonna be allowed to be heard because the R's didn't wanna take a vote on it. And Whittick complained and got it heard. As you notice, he's the only person carrying the bill. There's a lot of bills like that. So when I tell you that I need all of you to pass a bill, well, look at this room full of people. This room is stacked full of people opposing this bill who represent thousands and thousands and thousands of people because they're unions. Yeah, 65,000 was what one person said. They're coming from all over. Plus, the room is packed. It's an overflow. And I'm just going to show you quickly. Of course, nothing's quick now.
The mail-in ballot bills like that, there were people overflowing out into the hallways and they would only let so many people.
Right. So the hearing started with, we're only going to do 20 minutes per side. So you'll notice that when you go that pretty soon after a couple more union reps, and this is when you organize a hearing, you organize it so the people that are saying what they need to say they come first, right? Then you have a lot of support, there's a lot of union members, but there's also a lot of people. The next speaker is also very important because it's Northwest Energy claiming that union people are Republicans, that 65% of Northwest Montana votes Republican, and they do now. These were all union territories that are all now voting Republican. And so it also shows you that it's a common interest. But it shows you that how out of step the agenda that comes from a national organization is with Montanans. But guess what? We lost this issue. We as working people, we as a society that depends upon strong working families and strong economy for people because the Supreme Court made the decision. And yet all of Montana for many, many decades has said, no, we want this. And that's what is also important because, there's Northwest Energy talking about it. And then I just want to give you the list. I'll just show you some.
Do they alternate sides?
What do you mean alternate sides?
Well, if it's 20 minutes a side.
Yeah, they did. And our
So
Whittick
they
spoke and he gave a description of what the bill,
In
he
every
said.
hearing, do they alternate sides? Or
Yeah,
The order
okay.
of
Yes.
testimony?
So please watch hearings because they're fun. Okay, they're not all fun, but the sponsor speaks first, and then all of the people who support the bill speak. Okay? Then the opponents all speak, and then if you have informational witnesses are people that don't have a pro or con, or they maybe work for the government or the state, and they're there just to answer questions if people have technical questions, if they have agency questions. They're there to answer questions. And then you have questions. You'll also notice in this hearing that there were no questions because we were all on a stand-down order. We were just doing the hearing, so we did, what I mean by stand-down order is we're not going to belabor the point. We're not going to ask any questions. We're just going to be done, right? So the hearing is over in 30 minutes. And and it didn't pass. And if we go to the internet, okay, let's see. So, on that internet page, there's a section where that says notes, minutes, and it has the minutes, and it tells you all the people. But even the number of people that testified is nothing compared to the number of people who signed up. So, you know, you can look on the record, it shows who was there. Now, Tom Steenberg was there, he was just 5 minutes late. So, you do need to pay attention to the whole record because it's not always accurate, I have to say. But these are all of the people who noticed, they all oppose it. Can you see? Yeah, I'm just gonna scroll down quickly.
So this is on the website?
Yeah, so all this, and this is on the website for every single bill, right? Okay? So, you know, here's J.D. Lynch. These people, if you represent somebody, right, you put down who you represent.
So which tab is it, or which link is it in the bill section that shows you all this stuff?
So when I got to so this is in the...
So you clicked on the little audio thing?
Yeah, the audio's not working, but here, if you go up here, there's the agenda.
Okay.
Why is it not working? Oh, here's the agenda here. And then...
See the little audio thing?
No, we want the thing...
On the panel will join the hands of the Democrats and reject this legislation. It's very poor public policy. It's not supporting families in this state, and it is detrimental to the Republican Party. Reject the divisiveness that lies behind this legislation and consign it to the ash heap for the 2015 session. Courage is not fearlessness. Courage is the determination to do the right thing in the face of fear. Kill this bill unanimously.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Any other proponents?
My name is Darrell Johnson. I'm president of the Greater
Let's
Dillon.
know that, sir. Now your last name, sir.
Oh, JOHN-SOM, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm president of the Greater Yellowstone Central Labor Council. We represent about 2,500 or more steel workers across the state. About 1,000 in the mine and broken up in various other categories, refining being one of them. This is a personal predatory bill which actually serves no purpose in the state of Montana to make Montana run better day to day. It has no business even getting addressed. Also, our members, our representative testimony,
I'd be interested in closing after that. Testimony is provided. Thank you. And although the sponsor said this is a nation in communities, it starts bill. Every union, whether it's private sector or public one, it's an injury to all. This bill has caused a great deal of divisiveness and conflict at times.
Is that Alec Flanagan?
It's such a moral Representative Ricky has a small business here, and he can attest to the ways and benefits that we give benefits him. And I think any
So where he can look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
We can actually look these up.
well, and this is once you get to the archive page, you can look it up by year. Then you can find any bill. If you go to that lookup page where the bills are, it can actually get you right to this page. Sometimes you have to, if they don't have that little icon, you have to find out what day the House hearing was and go look it up by year. So this is a little bit more complicated, and I was hoping we would spend more time with it, but, and we've missed J.D. Lynch anyway, didn't we? So, okay. Like, for instance, if you look back, this one here has a hearing, these are icons, that there's the audio. Now, not all hearings have video and audio, but all of them have audio, at least audio, okay? So I was trying to find, so anyway, this many people showed up, And as you know, he only gave 20 minutes. Now, this was really painful when this was done to some other hearings where we had in judiciary where hundreds of people showed up and the chair didn't let anyone speak. Now, I believe that violates the obligation that we have to listen to our constituents. But on the other hand, there is a limited amount of time, and so particularly towards the end of the session, the chairs get away with doing that kind of thing. So I think that most of us, if we want the bill heard, we argue to try to get more time for something like that.
But if we showed up and went to the hearing, we could all sign our names there.
So yes, so this is, the point thank you for asking the question, because the point I wanted to make about this is that that's JD Lynch.
14 is past.
You can talk louder than you.
Okay, at this time we use up to 20 minutes, but if somebody.
Oh darn, no, because see, he's fun to hear, but you know what, there's something going on. So, all right, we'll just get rid of it.
So Andrea, the chair of the committee decides how much time and the.
Yeah, the chair organizes the hearings.
And
The
then
chair.
do they do that beforehand? Do they have a strategy beforehand, or do they make that decision based on how many people show up, or who shows up?
It can be all of that. So for the most part, especially in the beginning, we just let everyone speak. We let them speak as long as they want. Sometimes they limit it to a minute. You'll notice if you watch that hearing, how they cut people off when they were introducing themselves, and where you can get to a point where all you can do is say your name and whether you oppose it. Now, I don't think that is, so as you can see, there's a public record, right? So I would encourage, if you believe in something, come to the hearing. Come to the hearing prepared to actually leave something written, right? Leave something written that says, this is who I am and this is why I care about it. And that way, whether you're first or last or don't get to speak at all, you have that in the public record, how you feel about that bill.
Andrea, if you do leave something written, would it help to leave like a list of signatures that you collected?
Like a petition?
Yes, a petition. You can leave any of that kind of stuff. A petition, joint letters, personal stories, and these are things that if you have copies if you bring copies, bring 20, or however, check and see, because the committees change the number of people on the committees. Okay, this
Go
is.
there and press pause.
It's obviously haunted.
Yeah.
Must be art.
Well, and it's unfortunate because I was going to. All right, let's see. Okay, let's get rid of business and labor. Let me try, let's just see if we can hear this one in a second, but participation, like I said, is really, if you start now and get yourself familiar with this and participate by writing letters, making phone calls, coming over to Helena, even if it's an issue that's not directly there's going to be a bill that's like it. So like I think often of healthcare, those things affect everybody. People have different positions and it may not be the exact thing, but it has to relate to the bill. You can't just come and say, I just am here to talk to you and go on public record. It has to be about whether you oppose or support the bill and why, right? But you could go and say, I oppose this bill because it doesn't go far enough. We need health care for all, for example. That's how you can participate even if you don't believe in the narrow focus of what we've done. Now, does most legislators encourage you to do that? Not necessarily. You don't want to get too far out of what the issue is. You have to stay within what the subject matter of the bill is, okay? But you can do that by, like I said, bringing, we don't have a system by which we can listen to videos or watch PowerPoints, but you can certainly send those ahead of time. You can send them afterwards, saying I'm following up on the hearing and I think you might be interested in this video. I can tell you that most people aren't going to necessarily watch it if it's more than a minute long, right? So, but you can do all of those things, and then you'll recognize that many of the bills that we had were, I do want to find this on the website. Let's see if we can get back to the main. So what I'm looking up now is to show you how bills are, that little, I gave you information. This is last year, so this tells you about committees and it tells you about people. And this is something when you go to the legislature, you can pick up another one. You can, they'll actually send it to you if you want them to, but pick up another one and take a couple home to your friends.
Did you put your mic on?
What's that?
Put your mic on.
Yes, I will, but I'm, okay. So here, I'm now on the main page again.
When does the next one come out?
Do you know when 2019 is coming out?
It'll be out by the legislative session in 2019.
Okay, so January.
So I'm trying to get you to the training information. Are you guys watching?
Yep.
So here's a virtual orientation guide. Okay? This is where the new legislator handbook is. Okay? And if you want to see what they tell you in the surviving your first session, that's where it states you may have to work 10 to 16 hours a day, but we want you to exercise every day and not drink alcohol. But what's really fascinating is this law. There was a law passed that said they have to start organizing when there's a bill that lasts over many sessions, right? And so by subject area, it's these Senate Bill 279 topic primers. So you can go here and see issues. And I'm actually going to go to the labor and work comp area because we were watching a labor bill. And here's the right to work history, right? And they actually did a whole thing on how often it's been brought before the legislature and what the issues were. And because it's had a major change, it even mentions the Supreme Court case that's pretty much taken the issue away anyway. But on this page, oops. But here is the information on the presumptive illness for firefighters, for instance, okay? And so there's a lot of, as you can see in that section, there's lots. All of this stuff, if I would encourage you to start viewing it, just go to the virtual orientation, because that's where the 2018 handbook is, virtual orientation.
Is that one gonna come up this session again?
What's that?
Is that bill gonna come up again this session?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a lot of bills that keep coming back on both sides of the aisle. There's different reasons why they don't pass. Sometimes people think that's a waste of time. Sometimes people think it's worth just still having a conversation about it and seeing if we can't start to study it. But as you'll see, when people, in order to really get something passed, you really have had to have prepared it really well ahead of time, which doesn't mean that we didn't pass things that only 2 people showed up, nobody opposition, and you really wonder what they did, right? Some of those bills. So that also happens, okay? So I'm trying not to discourage you about that, but if you have an idea, the best thing to do is to start with talking about it and seeing if it really needs to be a law, because many things don't even need to be a law. And this is the reason I'm trying to do this, Margaret, but I use as my, and he's not here today, but Bill Gear ran for the legislature. And he's very concerned and interested in environmental issues. And he has been way more effective as an individual citizen working on environmental issues than maybe he would have been in the legislature. Because remember, the legislature, we can only get done certain things, and depending on what the issue is, it requires the makeup of the legislature to believe in that, what you want to accomplish.
She could do better with her union than she.
Amanda Curtis is organizing people. She's inspiring young people. She's a teacher. She is probably one of the most valuable colleagues I had in last session. In fact, she sings on the floor a prayer on one day, and she was really a valuable member. But she decided it wasn't a valuable use of her time because she could be more effective. And frankly, so did Jenny Eck, our leader. And I can't speak for them. I can tell you that they haven't stopped working on the problem. They just decided that that wasn't the place they wanted to do. But the other issue I wanted to say is that, and if you look at the thing about, 20 tips for legislators, please take time to look at it, because you'll realize that every legislator is working hard under very difficult circumstances to create laws that work for everybody. And it's set up in a way to really not work, because we did term limits, so now people don't have long periods of experience. And frankly, I just think that the things that I'm concerned about, and I think the things that many of you in this room are concerned about, really require a groundswell of support and activity. And actually, most of you are working on some way, in one way or another, on most of those kinds of issues. So I'm not trying to dismiss that yet.
This may be a rabbit question, so don't answer it if it is a rabbit question, but I wondered, why is the legislature set up the way there's the election, and then if you're a new legislator, you immediately dive into a session, and then you have a year of interim work? So why isn't it the reverse? You get elected, you have a year of committee work on bills, understand the issue, and then go into session?
I think that there isn't any way, it's really the throw you into the fire kind of thing, sink or swim kind of thing. You really do learn a lot just by doing, frankly. I mean, I do think that is what happens, is that it doesn't make you a bad legislator because you didn't know it ahead of time. That is something we certainly don't. I mean, everybody comes from all walks of life and are citizens, and they're not necessarily ever done that before. And as I said, even if you were a lobbyist, or even if you went there to talk about a particular issue on a regular basis, it's still impossible to know what it's really like until you do it. I think it used to be that first session legislators weren't expected to do anything but learn. But now we have term limits, and you need to get on it if you're going to get something done in your time. And I think it doesn't really matter how much you think you want to get done the first session. It's not going to be very easy to get very much done that isn't already planned. Yeah.
So why do they shoot down more than a 2-year term for House of Representatives?
I don't think that has anything to do.
What do you mean shoot?
Well, I'm just curious. I mean, I think as far as learning and and continuity, why do they have elections every 2 years for House? And maybe that's not an appropriate question. Are you thinking?
No, I mean
it doesn't tell us.
It's a
anything about
public
how we work.
it's public participation requires. This was a constitutional thing. If you don't like how they act, you can change them, right?
Well, the Senate's not that way, though.
The Senate is every 4 years.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's like at the federal level.
Yeah.
So,
It just.
yes, especially now that we spend so much time campaigning.
And money.
Yeah, and money. I mean, I think those are problems. Go ahead.
I just want to know what we can do.
Yeah. So participate, and I don't feel that I've really left the message I wanted to. It's not hard to participate. You can watch. That is a big deal. I get so many comments by people who just saw the television. And you know what? I hate it because I am not a great public speaker, but I feel compelled to speak on things, and I speak a lot on things that that is my expertise especially. And so watching what people do will really, one, it'll make you feel like, well, I can do that, right? I mean, it's true. It'll make you feel like you can do it. But it'll also show you how seasoned people who are, you can see people that are there defending our rights, defending our interests. People there are advocating. I do have to say, if you're a Republican now, you are in the majority, and if you have a Republican kind of bill, it can pass easy without much work, without much, commitment. Sometimes it does things, sometimes it doesn't. If you're a Democrat and you have a real desire to move something forward that is about democratic values that aren't Republican values, even though I would argue that we're missing the point about some of that, we're in the minority. And so you have to recognize that when you're unhappy with your legislator because they're not getting gun control passed, or you're not getting protection for this, or you're not, paying for education, you have to understand that Democrats are pretty much playing defense, and to get something passed like Medicaid expansion, is very time consuming. And so they'll have 3 or 4 priorities. Yeah?
What do you think is some of the most effective ways to convince the legislature to vote in favor, say, of a bill? Like, is it making the call so you get these, or sending emails, or calling? That sheet where people sign in, do y'all get to see that before you vote, to see how many were in there that supported or opposed that bill?
So when we're in those hearings, we won't see the sheet. What we'll see is the room full. We'll be there listening. Anybody that's in that hearing room, that is what we do. We become very good listeners. We ask our questions. We often make up our mind at the hearing, not always. If you want to make a real difference, so like for instance, it doesn't matter how many people, okay, these are around, but you can see that some stacks, I'll just tell you, the 3 biggest bills that were in my committees was raw milk, right? Raw milk is profoundly controversial. Profoundly, people want to drink raw milk, but you have to balance the desire for a healthy alternative to whether or not the risk is acceptable or not. And what's interesting is, for me, who drank raw milk as a kid, many of us probably did, we're not afraid of raw milk in and of itself. I want to drink raw milk, but I don't want anyone else bringing it to a picnic, And so the question becomes, how do you make that risk acceptable? And what's really interesting is, to date, there's been no willingness to do that. They want immunity all the time. So as long as there's no willingness to even accept the responsibility or the risk, then that bill's going to be difficult to pass. But the time is coming. It's passed in many states, and there's a great website that shows the raw milk controversy. That's one of the controversies in the country that actually has somebody monitoring the entire controversy for you. Now, another bill that you'd think would be easy to pass, Montana is one of the last states that doesn't regulate dog and cat breeders.
Yeah.
And so we are a state that, no regulation, but what's us created is 3 different counties have had huge bills by having to clean up breeder messes, where you had to take care of the animals, et cetera, because they weren't being treated well. Well, you'd think that would be an easy thing to solve, just at least have a way for people to monitor that. And that doesn't pass because of a couple of representatives who are very adamant about it. And they, the Republicans have a system, and I'm not sure what it is, but, if a Republican, they have the majority. Yeah.
Just one other quick question. Are these color coded?
Yellow is phone. The others are, if you go on the website, which we didn't get to, but if you go on the website, there's a place, it's not up right now actually, it'll be up when the session's up, where you can put in your name and address, what bill it is, and what you want to, what your comment is. Now when I get these, I look at them, and the other big one.
Right, even if you don't read them, the stacks.
Well, if you end up reading them really, but so a stack like this is I think this might be the net metering. Yeah, this one is a bill for community solar, right? This many people, and the majority of them want community solar. Imagine that.
So are they color-coded by opposing?
No. They're color-coded by whether you make a phone call or you go on the internet. Now, you can see that here it says whether you're getting this because they chose you to get the email, the note because you're on a committee, right? So I'm on energy and technology, so most of these came to me because I was on energy and technology. Then you can see that these people later on sent it to the entire House when the bill went to the House floor. Okay? So you can actually target people, yeah.
I mean, these forms don't strike me as super user-friendly, the pros and cons are kind of hard to find. If I email someone directly and don't use the form, is that still going to be translated onto one of these forms?
No. This is, okay, so when you...
Is it more effective?
You can email directly here, right? Directly to your email address. Right. That's when Find My Legislator, everyone has an email address and actually often a phone number. You can text them, right? This is for when you go on the public site. This is kind of the rapid response when bills are coming up. You can go in and say, And you'll have, some people have constituent groups that actually monitor this for them, and they send out to their memberships, contact your legislator, they give you the webpage, and people send in notes.
Oh yeah, I've filled out that form plenty of times.
Yeah.
So in terms of making sure that I'm being as effective as possible, since that form doesn't look super compelling to me, that's why I want to know if.
Well, some
emailing
people
is
don't
more
take the
effective.
paper because they believe in not wasting
Or
paper.
or the email.
For me, this makes me sure that I read it. It's getting it in paper, because the email is,
So does that include phone calls then?
yellow is phone calls,
Oh, yellow.
and the other one is the web page. Yes.
So I have a friend who, at a meeting we attended, when recently said, because she's very interested in working with the legislature, and she had done it a lot. She said during the last session, Dick Barrett called her up. He was in the Senate or whatever, and he said, Jana, we're voting on such and such and such, what do you think? What, you know? And she knew enough about the issue to say, well, here's what you gotta think about. And so there was a place where Dick, who's of course wonderful and experienced and smart, just felt as though he needed somebody else to say, what should I do on this? And he was able to phone Janet, and she was able to be a resource.
And one of those, on that one sheet, it shows we come from all different backgrounds. We literally are citizens that have specific expertise in some things, have specific interests in other things. I think I'm a trained lawyer for 30 years, so for me, I spend a lot of time reading the bills, making sure that they say what they say. Because we pass a lot of bad law on a good idea that wasn't written well. And that, even if you think that it's okay, it can still be interpreted later, badly. But the best way is to continue to participate and make yourself known to people. So like when you really want something, that doesn't mean, there's gonna be some bills that are, this is what Democrats believe in and we're not gonna vote for them. No matter how many of our constituents call and say, we want to be able to get our tax money back for schools, for instance, right? The school choice bill that wants tax money for people to go to private schools to go back to the owner instead of pay for public education. Democrats are committed to public education. And yes, did government fail rural Montana on public education? Maybe. We stopped funding as much as we should have. But we're not gonna, doesn't matter if I get 100 of these or 1,000 on school choice. Now, if I get 1,000 on them, I'll have to ask myself, what am I missing here, right? Now, the raw milk is something where I use my expertise on that. Like I said, I'm not opposed to people drinking raw milk, right? But it's about the selling of raw milk is what the bill is about, right? And if you're gonna sell and make a profit, you have to take responsibility for it. So then I use my legal training to say that. Now, if I wasn't a lawyer, as a lawyer, I get to tell my colleagues what I think about that, right? But if there's nobody that we know, of course, sometimes we will call people. Often people call their dentist when a dentist thing comes up. People will call. But the long and the short of it is, there's not very much time to do a lot of that. And so that's why when you see this, and we look at it, and we see people's names that we start to recognize. So think about everything that influences you, right? Unless it's family, knowing somebody's probably the best thing that influences you. I'm sorry, families does that too, right? I'm a city girl on egg now, right? But I come from a long line of farmers and ranchers. I never did. I was born and raised in Missoula, educated here, the city slicker, but I care a great deal about rural Montana. And
Are you in Willis, Global Agriculture?
what's that?
Are you in Willis 30?
I can't remember if he's on it again, but he was on it.
Yeah.
So the committee size has changed. Last time agriculture was very big, now it's small. One of the things that was a major change is Health and Human Services became in the House what they call a Tier 1 committee. It'll meet every day. And it meets every day in the afternoon. So that changed the size of a lot of committees. Why does it meet every day? Because some of the hearings, if you went for Medicaid expansion, it went on till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, the hearings, right? So because healthcare is such a big issue, Now, we even got, like I said, many healthcare bills in business and labor, but it's usually a different focus.
So do you tend to meet in the morning then, and then as a whole body, and then do committee work in the afternoon?
Oh
or-
gosh, thank you. You know, sometimes I think that these are much easier than me explaining. So this is what a typical day is. We get up, we're there by 7 in the morning. Our first committee meets at 8. The tier 1 committees meet, that's the one that meets every day, meets in the morning. So from 8 to noon, we're in our tier 1 committee. Mine is business and labor. Not my choice, but it does, I do have a lot of knowledge in that area. Then we have lunch, and guess what? Lunch happens. Constituents come to the Capitol and provide us lunch. And you know what? I'm not swayed, my vote doesn't get swayed by lunch, but my ability to communicate with my constituents is swayed by lunch, right? Because if I had to leave for lunch, I wouldn't be able to talk to anybody. But because people provide us lunch, particularly the first 2 months, because that's when their bills are getting done, I go down and I watch for the people from my community. I look for the Missoula representatives from the Forest Service, from the Department of Transportation, from the historical societies, from the art museums, from the churches. So, you know, and there's a schedule of that is on the website too. You can find that schedule.
Do they like bring you sandwiches or something?
Sometimes sandwiches, sometimes lasagna, sometimes
Where do they do that?
in the rotunda.
Oh, where do you eat?
Yeah.
Oh.
So we could, Montana Progressive Democrats could hold a luncheon in the rotunda for our legislators, is that what you're saying?
You could.
Okay.
Bring chili. You know,
Chili.
one of the most famous is the Outfitters do an outdoor barbecue, you know? So, now, lunch, well, guess what? We're in business and labor till noon. It has to end at noon. Now, that last day, it didn't even last that long, but noon to 1, and then at 1 o'clock, the floor session starts. Everybody has to be there every day at 1 o'clock. And that goes sometimes from 1 to 1:15, the first 2 days. It might only last for 20 minutes because there's no bills to be heard. But that's where you know bills that made it through committee, right? People says, well, I hear there's kill committees. Well, the majority has the right to kill any bill, right? So, in all the committees. So if it makes it to the House floor, then you know it's got legs in it. It might happen, something might happen, right? So that's always televised on TV. The House floor session.
Outside the,
Or
It's on that public TV channel, yeah.
189.
You know, I think that's also changed, so I don't know which one it is. And then we have what is called Tier 2 committees at 3 o'clock, from 3 to 6. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is one tier. Tuesday and Thursday is another tier, right?
And those are hearings.
It's same like the committee meetings in the morning. So my committees in the afternoon are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is energy. Tuesdays and Thursdays is agriculture. Okay? Now, then we're done by 6. Hopefully during this time in the beginning, we have more time to respond to emails. Towards the middle of the session, we don't have any time at all to do anything. And then at 6, dinner. Then what happens?
you look for people?
No, people look for us.
Oh, okay.
So we have constituent groups that provide us dinner. And as I said before, my vote is not swayed by providing me dinner, but my ability to talk to you about your concerns is swayed by having dinner. And so you have all these groups, and yes, it's the more wealthy groups that provide dinner sometimes. Sometimes people organize together to provide a dinner.
This is every month?
Every night for the first 2 months. So as a legislator, I am in meetings listening to people from 7 o'clock in the morning till at least 7 o'clock at night. And of course, because I'm not a young one anymore, I'm in bed by 8. Okay? Well, it's winter, right? It's cold.
The sun's been down.
It's cold, the sun's down, and you have to get up by 6.
Yeah.
So No, between 8 and 10, I'm in bed.
Did you get the same?
And I paid $200 for one swim last session.
So much for exercising.
Yeah, I joined the club and went once. That's what the point was. Okay. So yes, I tried to change that. Yeah. Well, I do walk up the stairs, but I've gained weight since my picture. I don't let anyone take pictures of me anymore. Okay, next question.
So
I do like answering questions,
we
yeah.
have time to read the bill.
Okay, that is a fabulous question, because when do we have time to read the bills? Huh? During the hearing. So what I do,
You can't listen if you're reading.
well, okay, if you have a bill, okay, the biggest bill was a tax bill that was 300 pages long, and yes, nobody read a word of it because it just was gonna die, right? The sales tax bill. It's like this big, nobody read it. But in business and labor, the bills are not gonna be any more than 1 page to 10 pages long. And I get there as soon as I can by 8. There's that introduction, roll call, and I'm not a fast reader. And so what I do is when the hearing starts, I read the bill, and please, I know that we didn't get to this part, but in that second part of that orientation, there's a section that says how to read a bill, how to write a bill. It'll have the area of law that's already law, and it'll have the change. And so I'm used to reading laws, so that is my commitment, is on that committee, I'm gonna make sure that everything that is written is saying what it says it is. And our committees the committee process is the place where we help each other make sure we're not voting on bad bills. Now, do we vote on bad bills? Yes. We vote the wrong way on bills sometimes. Bills don't always do what we think they're gonna do. I'm gonna give you my favorite example, and I think I actually even said I'm concerned about this, and that's the Secretary of State bill saying that they could now go online, do things online, right? Well, they changed the whole process to where you can't do anything not online. And what does that do to all of our people that don't have computers? And I work on a computer every day, and my computer is too old, right? Not this one, but mine. So, this is a problem when you think you're voting on something that isn't going to have that effect. You're even told on the floor that no, this is just an option. Doesn't mean that they will switch everything to online. Well, as a lawyer, I don't think you should ever file anything that with your signature that it isn't a hard copy you have a copy of, but, so I might be picky about that, but, so yes, we do have to read the bills before we vote on them. Now, the other thing to understand is that bills, the hearing process, you heard Eric Fever do it, right? He said, I want you to look at lines blah, blah, blah. So guess who helps us read the bill? Is the people testifying before us. They say, the sponsor said it doesn't do this, but what does it mean if it says right there it does? Right? Did you remember hearing that? So we read the bills with the hearing too. We keep track of everybody, and then we ask questions when we're really confused, right? We say, you said it doesn't mean this, but we heard testimony that it does. Can you explain to me how that's not going to be interpreted that that's what it means, right?
So if you're planning on being over there to lobby for a specific issue, it's probably important to be there right at the very beginning when the bill is introduced, right?
Oh yeah, you need to be there. You have to.
And that'll be on the schedule, that such and such bill is going to be introduced on Monday.
Oh, no, see this process, the process, you introduce it in the House and it goes to the committee. The committee chair then decides when to schedule the hearing. Okay. In the beginning, the committee chair may say, no, we need to schedule this because we don't have anything else, right? We can say, can you wait till a Friday because my key witnesses can come on Friday, but they can't come on Thursday. So the chair will work with the sponsors to make sure that the hearing is prepared. Now, that's not always the case. But for somebody who's just watching on the outside, you will never get enough notice unless you are paying attention to that specific bill and have either signed up to get the notifications or are in contact with the people who are organizing the hearing. So now, when we as sponsors, so for me, when I did a couple of the bills, even though they were based upon constituents, my constituents were elderly and couldn't come in the winter, right? So I ended up carrying that bill, and I had fun with it. It was an important bill. It changed. It was amended, but it passed the House. It was killed in the Senate. But other hearings, like even though I used to be the one to organize hearings on the right to choose your own doctor, right? A legislator who's now working in the area, she's an ex-legislator, Michelle Reinhardt, I think maybe she used to be from Missoula.
Yeah.
She now lives in Great Falls. Well, she organizes that hearing now. So she calls up the people, she gets the statements, because they're representing, because it's injured workers, it's hard to get people who are injured to have to come to a hearing. Why is it that we ask people, the most vulnerable, to defend themselves? Well, this last hearing, we had 3 doctors' associations who testified, finally, on behalf of their clients, saying that this does interfere with the doctor-patient relationship. And that's a big deal, because you can't just, that's what we've done, right? And I mention injured workers a lot for one reason. Even though this labor hearing I showed you, whereas everyone claims to represent labor, injured workers are really a target, a regular target at the legislature. And so what they do is organize the hearing. They gather lots of testimony. One of the saddest testimonies for me was, remember that police officer who was shot in the neck?
Heinley.
Yeah, Heinley, thank you. May he rest in peace. Sorry. His wife signed a testimony of how difficult it was for her to get out of the insurance company the very things that he needed to survive. The technology, the assisted technology he needed to breathe. And he was injured in the line of duty. He was injured at work. And we owe. Montana kills and injures more people than any other state. Why is that? It's not because we're mean. It's because we have very difficult working conditions and we're tough people. And instead of saying, hey, can you help me move a file cabinet, you try to do it on your own, right? But on the good news of that, not Northwest Energy, but Avis, in the East, they created the union with management because of OSHA, of course. They're having to have, because they do high wire power things and stuff. They actually finally created a system by which it is expected of employees to go ahead and say, stop for a minute, let's just take a break. And the reason is because everybody has, I don't want to call it a premonition, but everyone has a feeling something's wrong. Not everyone has it, but somebody usually has it in a situation like that. And when this employer gave permission and actually said, we expect you to do it, and there was no repercussions for stopping, they've gone down to almost 0 injuries. And of course we have bad roads, so that's the biggest problem.
Can you give us an example? Can I put the screen up?
Yeah, please, do whatever you want.
Could you give us a quick example of each of these teams that we have, of how they could be useful to you?
Yes. I apologize for the technology. I did come early and I just didn't think I would have such a problem. So I apologize for that. Okay, I thought I just turned it off.
I think you have to press it twice to turn it on.
You might be able to do it with that switch
Power
next
off,
to the
yes,
audio
press,
there.
press the power button.
Okay. So, these are great. This is organizing all the people, right? This is basically saying, so the committees that do this kind of thing, MEIC, labor unions, teachers unions, which organizations y'all are from, many people have a email list where they say, okay, our bill that we're concerned about here is gonna be heard, please send an email. Please go to this website. Please make a phone call. If you know anybody who knows this legislator, because sometimes they can narrow it down to just a handful of legislators that they need to turn. And then they look in those towns and for any of their members who might actually know them. So that's a more complete answer to how you'd be effective, right? Those are the, you do all of those things. So anybody organizing any of these things probably has to work together, right? Because you want to do all of them. This is the most important way of impacting people, is saying this is how this bill's going to affect me. Do you really think it's fair to me? Or, as I told Senator Daines, I'm an attorney for 30 years. 1,700 law professors has said that Kavanaugh is not qualified, is not capable of being a Supreme Court judge. And he said, oh, but he was treated so badly. And I said, you know what? We expect our judges to be superhuman. I need my judges to be superhuman. They're not supposed to be like TV judges. Those are offensive to me as a lawyer. I don't think, so I told him how I really felt about it. Did that change his mind? Of course it didn't. But, that is, when you can say, it's from this is why I feel about it.
This is a phone call?
No, I went to see him in person in DC. Yeah.
So you got to see him?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
He exists.
I went to DC.
Oh. Okay, I'll tell you a time to go. I'm sorry. This is great. So no, you know what, Montana is we still have traditions that are very participatory. One of the traditions is the Montana delegation has a morning coffee on Wednesday mornings every week during the session, where all three of them come, we have three. Three come, and they actually will talk to you. And so I got up before my conference I was going to, went to that coffee with the particular purpose of talking to Daines about that issue.
How many were there how many at the breakfast?
So at that breakfast, I met a very interesting woman trying to increase rural access to dental care, right? She told me something that I kind of probably knew but didn't know, is that most diseases start in bad dental care. And yet, what is the first thing that insurance companies stop covering? Dental and eyes, which we all have. Anyway, okay. So,
even the VA doesn't cover dental care, unless it's service connected.
Yeah, this is also a dental.
It's crazy.
It's a problem, especially where in the community she's representing, where they have, people are losing their teeth by 10, 11, 12 years old.
So how many people were there at that breakfast?
I know, I'm just giving you some idea. So there's probably 40 people.
Oh, wow.
And so what you see there is you see who's in town doing what, right? You see. I have never, I really try to avoid it. Yeah, anyway, but yes, they'll take your picture and send you a copy. But the point is that you get to, it is an opportunity to say hi. Now, you can always try to make an appointment, but it's true, it's difficult to see them by appointment. I think it's getting harder, but.
Especially with Daines.
Daines runs everything through his staff.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, sometimes meeting with staff is just as important, because meeting with staff, you get to say, these are the issues that I think are important on that, and they can tell you what's going on with it. And they, if you find the staff that's actually working on the issue that you're interested in, that's actually just as powerful sometimes as meeting with the actual senator. So all of these kinds of contacts are important, right? Any kind of contact you can make to move the agenda forward that you have. I think the thing that I was hoping to get to is the power of what people working together and showing how, even though that might be their issue, we recognize it's also our issue, right? Medicaid expansion is a perfect example of how that really needed everybody to recognize how that impacts their community, impacts their medical care system, impacts all the issues, right? So that was huge because you saw that it impacted everybody.
And the storytelling and lobbying seem to be really important for Medicaid expansion.
Yeah, well, this is-
People really need to tell their stories.
Yeah, so,
Montana Women Votes are putting together stories for that. And I believe Montana Human Rights Coalition and Planned Parenthood is also making over.
so this is, research team is important, not only before you create a bill, but even when you're responding to bills. So for instance, we had a bill to do some kind of, what I end up doing is I do a lot of research really quickly when it's not in my committee, or even if it is. I do internet research during a hearing sometimes. If there's an issue that you care about, and you actually did a bibliography that says here's all the information, if you have an issue that you really want addressed and you want a bill, then the more you do for it, the better chance it has, right? If you actually write it, research it, find out who all of the supporting constituents are, organize them, get them to write letters, get them to do videos, get them to write letters to the editor, get them to get to know their legislator, right? So for instance, any bill that someone comes to me about, I'm going to say, okay, if I like that, so you have to try to find Republicans who believe in it. Maybe we don't admit that to everybody, but the reality is, we say, do you know any Republican legislators? Look at the list. Do you know anybody from your organization who knows any legislators in these other places? Okay. So these things, people all have to work together. This is more in the formulating it, making sure you know the challenges, who supports it, who doesn't support it. But when you find out from here who supports it and doesn't support it, then you want to get them to write it down. If you collected stories for 2 years about how people are affected with health care, and you take, a pile of personal statements, this is my healthcare experience, that's, it's kind of a goal that I think is important, because I listen to people's healthcare problems all the time. And healthcare is not working for many people. If people are sick and they have health insurance, they are grateful. But beyond that, there's real problems in our healthcare system. I just think these three things have to work together. You have to decide what you mean by communications. This seems to me that this is communicating out to a larger constituent group.
So communicating between the legislators and the rest of the groups.
Yeah, so what you're doing is, you're organizing that communication. You're telling your people, we want you to respond to this bill to these legislators.
Yes.
And sometimes it's everybody, sometimes, you don't want to send it to everybody if the bill is just being heard in business and labor, right? But you know what? If that's too difficult to distinguish, just send it to everybody, right? Because like I told you, I waited for a bill because it was the first letter I got. I waited for the entire session. And I never got to vote on it. Which I'm glad, because I don't know, daylight savings time ago. So these people, the more information you have, the better. But this research is not just about the bill, right? It's really researching the people. It's researching, what do we know about this person? Well, we know Andrea's a lawyer, so she might be a good person to make sure we haven't made any big mistakes, right? I can tell you, if you say that you want to create yourself a duty that you're going to do for somebody, like let's say raw milk, we want to create the ability for me to sell raw milk to you, then you can't have a no immunity clause. You can't have a clause that says I'm not going to be immune for any damages I cause, and I don't want to be tested ever. So one of the raw milk bills by who's now the speaker, he basically, his bill started out being anybody can sell anything to anybody, And it's, and Sweeney Todd is playing. Bad timing to have a bill like that. Okay.
So how does the legislative watch interact? I mean, so the research team is fueling the legislative watch team, but and who are, I don't understand the flow of communication.
So here's a bill. Let's just do Medicaid expansion, because it's probably, people have already done it on this. Medicaid expansion, the point is getting more people health care, right? So what you've done is, Montana Women Vote has collected stories like I just told you. If you watch the Medicaid expansion hearings, they're tearjerkers. I mean, it is just devastating to listen to that hearing. It is powerful. How anyone could vote against that is beyond me after hearing those hearings. Absolutely beyond me, right? This is important. This is powerful stuff. And you know, the people that vote against this don't listen, right? They leave. They walk out of the hearing, right?
Yeah.
The research is very important. We have to make sure that when we're organizing a bill, when you're talking about lobbying, research means knowing who the people are. Means getting into who they really are. Right now there's a huge split between the Republicans and I can't figure out who's who sometimes, right? Right?
But that was really important a few terms ago, a few sessions ago, right? When the rational Republicans or whoever.
Medicaid expansion passed by one vote.
I was actually thinking about the Disclose Act, which I think
Also by one
partly because there was a split in the Republicans.
Well, and the Disclose Act is really important because of the split, because why? Many people were attacked, not physically, but attacked in very personal ways in the campaign. In a way, we lost one of the Republican women on Business and Labor. Well, she was, I can't remember her name now. Anyway, she didn't run again because of that. Because she had a family. She didn't want her family to be exposed to that level of harassment that was done during the campaign. So that made it really possible for some people to vote for the Disclose Act. And there was a clear split on the three bills that passed that session between, and they all passed by one vote. Right?
What was the third one? Medicaid expansion, disclose, and what was the third one?
The compact with the water compact with Salish Creek tribes. I mean, a bill that is all benefit to the non-tribal members living on the reservation, a benefit to the state of Montana, a benefit to everybody. The tribe kind of hands it over, water rights, and still you have, you know, the most ugly hearing that is really sad. I mean, it was a very long hearing, but it got a little bit ugly sometimes. So when we're talking about the legislature, research really means knowing who's doing what, knowing who are the lobbyists that are right there so they can tell you, making connections with people, right? And then the communications team, I would assume they would be the ones that are organizing, once they know what bill's coming up, they're taking all this work and telling the members who to call, friends who to call, right? And it's true, you know, I mentioned that we have to work long hours, but we also don't have, you know, we have only a very limited staff, right? So it's not set up very well that way to do about participation.
Do you have an office?
No. I have the desk, one desk 35. Yeah, and you know what, the thing is, I don't need an office. Because I literally am, we have a room in the basement where we have a file drawer where we can dump stuff. And we have our desk where we can dump stuff, and yeah.
Do the committees have staff?
The committees have staff. The committees will have a bill drafter, analyst kind of person, and a secretary. So, like for instance, I'm mentioning work comp just because, well anyway, so on Business and Labor, who does a lot of work comp bills, there's a lot of questions on that, so the staff person can answer a lot of those questions. Secretary takes the minutes, that's why you have to spell your name. My name is still spelled wrong in many places.
So if you're on the research committee and you want to know something about members on a committee, can you call that staff person?
Yes, but all you have to do is look in here.
Well,
Or on the internet.
If you're wanting more information of.
No, they can't.
Read in there.
They're not gonna say Andrea is this or that. This will tell you a little bit about the person, right? But the staff is not going to talk to you about personal things about the members.
What kind of things could you get from the staffers that would be helpful in
No,
organizing your?
That's why it's important that we not just be in Missoula, right? That we know people in.
You have to work with
what point
people
or
that are in
whatever,
Helena because they
they'll
need
know.
to keep you informed. you know? Like, for instance, if you, like if you're an organization that does climate change, right? There's lots of environmental organizations that have paid lobbyists there, right? And so you'll end up knowing some of those people, right? I mean, this is the thing, is that, I know it sounds like, that's why research is hard on people, right? You have to actually go and have coffee with them and find out information about how they feel about things, right? So if you have a bill that you want done, then you'll just start meeting with people. And you can maybe get a team to meet with people. Or you can, you know, if you're a statewide organization, you'll send somebody from that area to talk to the person. That, you know, that's one way of getting research. The staff, they can't really tell you anything, because the staff works for the legislators to get the bills ready. And so they're just working all the time on that. So they can't even tell you, you know, there is staff that you can probably call legislative services and say, I can't figure out this website, and they would give it to you. They would tell you how to do it. That, you know, they might send you to someone that can do that. And I can find out more information about those kind of questions. But they put up, all this stuff is on the website, and that's why they want you to use that. You know, so when you go into that orientation thing, it says how to do a bill. There's also a thing that says how to participate. So all those links have all these different, under resources, it's gonna have all these kind of booklets that tell you different information. So that's one of the ways in which they're trying to tell you how to do it. Okay. It would have been clearer if I could have just used the website better. Next time we'll just all bring our computers and play on it.